and welcome to part 1 of the next series. I would like to congratulate Mr. Kittenface. Woo! They recommended Chiropterra with the Lunar Civil War forced to trigger. Would be fun, as I've only seen people play with the normal path before. So, that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be doing Lunar Civil War Extreme. The Lunar Civil War will erupt after the terrestrial issue is not solved in the most extreme degree, and with Equestria puppets supporting the Lunar Empire. Why? Because it just makes sense. It'll allow me to get more lore off by being allied to more people. Let's go with that. Yeah, that's also why I'm gonna have historical. That's also why I'm gonna have Iron Pony mode off, because it'll help with the lore. Yes, that's it. It'll help with the lore. Chiropterra, the waiting nightmare. Over 1,000 years ago, Equestria fell into a conflict during the uprising of Nightmare Moon. However, despite their best efforts, the Nightmare's followers failed in their first mission. Not wanting to be on trial for spearheading an insurrection, the great houses that supported her gathered their assets and resources, then fled as far as they could to avoid the long hoof of justice. Eventually, these self-imposed exiles reached foreign shores on a far southern continent, the land which would come to be known as Zebrica. Here, their inherent desire for order and discipline led the exiles to maintain their principles of obedience to the Nightmare, even in this foreign land. They maintained belief in her return and a near constant state of military preparedness for the day they'd be needed to return to their former homes. Since then, the great legions of Chiropterra have kept up the ancient traditions. All full-blooded citizens are born into legions, which have their own structure for military and non-military individuals. Each legion is quite unique, and a reflection upon the hereditary history of the old founders. The ancient nobility that settled in exile. Militarily, the legions allow any true citizen the opportunity to advance in rank. Though a lot of leadership are formed from noble lineages, lower caste, or those separated insufficiently from acquired labors who pursue a military path, may find themselves in the auxiliary forces, perhaps treated with disdain by their commanding officers, but still given a chance to prove themselves in battle. Those seeking a more righteous path may find solace in the moon speakers, those adherents who whisper kind words and minister to the faithful. The exact devotion to the faith is something permitted to each individual, at least full citizens' discretion. Those who have not, by the grace of good birth, been born in Chiropterra, can attempt to bring their family independence out of their shame and into the radiance of the moon by attending sermons given by the moon speakers. Currently, Chiropterra is positioning to aid in the return of Nightmare Moon, should she arise once more in Equestria, as the elements of harmony were successful in stopping her recent attempt at ascending to power. Failing this, the nearby countries of Tobak, Warzina, and Zeratina are ripe for the pillaging, as the locals would most certainly make for good labor stock, and the well-trained Chiropteran forces have little to fear from warring tribes and desert nomads. To the north, however, lurks a greater but slumbering threat, that of Hippogriphia. Should the full might of the mountain awaken to meet the legions, the conflict might split out to the whole of North Zebrica. Now, alright, we do have one area, the Peak of the Nightmare. Important note, this author has managed to obtain the following information through interviews, second and third claw testimony. It is as reasonable accurate as could be gleaned given the ultra-secretive nature of the nation in question. Oh, I love that. That is such a cool little piece that the mod decided to add. Like, they didn't need to do that, but it really just puts things together. New Ayakachitli is, if the rumors are true, a distinguished melting pot of cultures and myriad languages that stands as an almost direct mirror of its equestrian counterpart in Canterlot. Architecturally speaking, it is supposedly a grand city that seems to be built inside the very surface of the Imperial Hills, as if the Nightmare herself reached down and simply carved them asunder. Corroborated statements do indicate that the city itself favors function over form, and is heavily utilitarian and practical rather than designs for opulence, physical enjoyment, or general aesthetic of any discernible nature. It is alleged that the most elaborate iconography to Her Imperial Majesty, Nightmare Moon, takes pride of place in the Moonspeaker Temple in the capital, whilst as plain in decoration and ornamentation as every other building around it, the capital temple is alleged to be a focal point of the worship of the Nightmare and the blessings that she offers. From this hidden position, allegations are more made that the government forces most adherent to Nightmare Moon plan for a return and send out their legions to rage, pillage, and abduct locals and boarding civilians. The veracity of these claims cannot be verified independently. How interesting. It's a good thing. They don't know a thing. Who's our leader? Autumn Breeze. Baron Autumn Breeze III, one of the last scions of the venerable Clan Reed of Philadelphia, whom a millennia ago were one of the first equestrian noble families to recognize the righteousness of Her Imperial Majesty Nightmare Moon's rebellion. And although the first rebellion was a catastrophic failure, Clan Reed never betrayed their empress, and as such were the first of Her Majesty's loyal subjects to set off for the savage lands of Zebrica. And it was they who laid the foundations for the creation of Chiropterra those countless centuries ago. Since those dark days, Clan Reed, and by extension the Nightmare Legion, have been charged with the leading, and they have lain in the shadows, slowly but surely laying the seeds of doubt that will one day lead to the return of the Empress and the destruction of Equestria. But for now, Autumn Breeze must attend to the matters of the present. He is a proud supporter of Chiropterra's noble traditions, and believes firmly that the way they have lived for a millennia will guide the nation on into the future. For when Nightmare Moon does return, it shall be the venerated nobles of the legions who shall spread her mandate, and none shall dare to stop them. The Bitter Remnant gives a whole bunch of good effects, some bonuses against Equestria. The ponies of Chiropterra have lived in exile for 1,000 years because of their love for Nightmare Moon. Many still hold grudges towards Equestria for striking down their goddess, not just once, but twice. The invisible state, hidden in the shadow, the eyes of night are vigilant against the enemies of our state, especially the wretched pawns of the false light. The lives of our subjects are open to us. We know their affairs, their loves, their frustrations with us. Conversely, we remain watchful of the affairs of our adversaries, who are blind and helpless without the effete machinations of their precious daytime. We are silent, but we know, for we are everywhere. The Native Affairs Commission. While this national spirit is active, we will be able to raid our neighbors for labors, which can then be used for various projects. The truth of the matter is not all ponies can be persuaded to abandon their gods, their cultures, or their beliefs. Fortunately for them, they're soon taken in by the Native Affairs Commission, which in turn is tasked with finding an appropriate role for them, in the vain hopes that their pitiful existence will in some manner assist in the betterment of Chiropterra. While Her Imperial Majesty Nightmare Moon is the official head of the state of Chiropterra, the rather unfortunate circumstances of her banishment from this plane of existence have made it quite difficult for her to assume her role. As such, the Imperial Legionary Council, which consists of the Lord Commanders of the original 6 Imperial Legions that fled to Zebrica after Nightmare Moon's original banishment, run the day-to-day affairs of our country. The Legionary Council, in turn, is headed by the Imperial War Master, who is usually elevated to the position of by popular vote amongst their fellow commanders. The Imperial War Master acts as the Commander-in-Chief and de facto head of state of Chiropterra for as long as their fellow comrades allow them to do so, or until they express their wish to step down from the position. Well, right now we have... I don't love those effects, to be honest. Some extra research speed would be nice, though I don't love the monthly population down. Research gain efficiency, I do not like the recruiter population factor minus. This one seems like it just should be put on if you're at war, if you want recovery rate over organization. This one just gives organization. This one's a pure war like they are. And this one, pure defensive. I think I'm going to put the research person on, which now I have Emerald Light. There have been those who called Emerald Light a mad scientist, though she herself would refute the notion quite strongly, as would many others, even though the reasoning might differ. Born like so many others in Chiropterra to 2 legionaries, Emerald Light was something of an outcast in her martially-oriented family. Her mind always sought deeper answers, where if parents might want to teach her how to kill something, Emerald Light could only wonder how it lived, what made it tick, why, and how to change it. The proclivity set her path not into the ranks of the legions, but rather into the LMRD, where she quickly proved herself an excellent researcher. Her seniors were marked on her steel-trap mind, which seemed able to lock on to an issue, and to the exclusion of all other things, figure it out, even if she had to simply brute force it. Additionally, her utter disinterest in office politics and goal-focused thinking made her reliable enough that after a series of purges of the LMRD's ranks, she was a perfect candidate for heading the division when the old guard was dismissed. Under Emerald Light, the LMRD flourished and turned its effort to more and more radical experiments. They were, after all, the servants of Nightmare Moon, and half-hearted efforts had no place under her. And with a plethora of test subjects at their disposal, the sky was the limit, and any lingering shreds of ethics was the first thing discarded on this route. In time, her technocratic and apolitical deposition, combined with her results, made her the perfect fit for the role of commander of the Silver Moon Legion. Dividing her time between LMRD and the Silver Moon Legion, her fascination with pushing the very limits of science, no matter what needed to be done, has remained. She does not consider herself mad, though. Madness leads to irrationality, and she holds rationality in highest regard. Neither do others. That would make her a victim of her own mind, an excuse few can stomach, giving her after seeing what she is capable of. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. Do. Alright, the Native Affairs Commission. A rather antediluvian organization, the Native Affairs Commission is tasked with procurement and handling of native-born Zebrican laborers. These poor sods, whom have not yet accepted Nightmare Moon as their one true god and savior, are usually forced to perform various forms of physical and menial labor for the state, until they either prove their devotion to her imperial majesty or drop dead. Good. Okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna begin to commit a project. Only 15,000 people will be sacrificed, though they aren't really people. They're test subjects. Okay. The Legionary Medical Research Department. The Legionary Medical Research Department is the task force of scientists, researchers, and engineers investigating medical and biological breakthroughs for the greater good of Chiropterra. The LMRD has no limits in how far or how invasive its researchers might be, but their most gruesome experiments have yielded highly applicable results for the armed forces. Due to the ethically questionable operating procedure, not many on the LMRD remain for more than a decade, often requesting transferred or resigning at the end of their first term of service. Those that stay on that often speculated to the high-functioning sociopaths, but that has not stopped Lady Commander Emerald Light from supporting them without complaint. Empower ranks of the fighting soldiers to shrug off wounds taken in combat, emphasize on ease of use. That sounds good. Manipulation of genetic materials for the purpose of creating an all-around superior soldier to those who we currently have. Emphasis on strength, endurance, and obedience. That sounds good. Enhancement of magical abilities of our elite mage troops, most likely through stimulants. Emphasis on combat prowess and overall damage caused. You gotta go with one of the first two. Make use of local fauna as weapons against the enemies of the state. Emphasis on ferocity and natural killing prowess. I think I'll start with Project Octopus will be our beginning. My extremely basic start that I literally always do. We have quite a... in fact, yeah. If we're gonna be doing ratings, ratings are usually 6, so that could just be my rating party. You guys can just go over there. Rating, I don't really care about you right now. Rating party will be the main thing. Okay, do any of my guys have stories? Field Marshal Lightning Charm. Lightning Charm is one of the legionary commanders whose life story has most prepared her for her current position. Born to soldiers, raised a soldier, and still proud to be a soldier, Lightning Charm has crafted her legion into the most disciplined and professional of Her Majesty's forces, and prides herself on leading what she considers the most elite of the legions. Though she would hesitate to say that to any of the other commanders' faces, she thinks that the Children of the Moon and their leader Lunar Hale as too zealous for her own good. Emerald Light is scraping up scraps that cost too much for what the military gets out of them, and has even said Autumn Breeze may be a bit too stuck up. But even the other commanders have heard this. They don't bother commenting. They know Lightning Charm always has Her Majesty's goals in mind, and that her criticisms are efforts to improve all the legions as much as she can, even if they sting a little. Lightning Charm brings a rigorous style of leadership to the troops she commands. Drills are constant and rigorous, and everything is expected to run at full capacity, and if it doesn't, it will be reprimanded harshly. But through all her personal qualms, like all the other legionary commanders, she has only one goal in mind, the ever-increasing glory of Her Majesty, Nightmare Moon. All hail the Nightmare. General Lihei, born in Moonspeaker Hollow, Leaf Lihei joined the ranks of Chiropterra's legionaries when of age and advanced up the ranks through pragmatism and a no-nonsense attitude. Though his unusual enthusiasm for aerial destruction and superiority in battle has easily portrayed him as a warmongering fanatic, Lihei's prerogative bases itself around conducting war in the most efficient and least risky way possible. The introduction of aircrafts had provided just the means for him to accomplish this, and demonstrated with the catalytic success of Operation Moonshine. Riding on his win, Lihei responsibilities have doubled from merely taking care of the forces under his command to leading Chiroptera to its future above and beyond. Nevertheless, a daunting task, Lihei simply views it as a broader continuation to better support Chiroptera's legion, for a military can only be as great as its sustainments. This guy sounds a lot like my current D&D character. Efficient, will do what it takes for their goals. Respectable. Except their goals. No, their goals are amazing. Hey, Luna. General Lucent Eclipse is no traitor, nor as idealistic as his opponents might say. The young officer flew through the ranks of the legions not because of his grandfather, Eternal Eclipse, but rather by his own drive and merits. Ponies unfamiliar with Lucent are quick to write him off as an extremist. A young stallion so caught up in his own ideals he cannot see the bigger picture. But they are wrong. General Eclipse is no fool, and while he may not have the stomach for politics, he has a mind for war. As his father has placed more and more responsibility in the leading of the Ursa Legion to him, Lucent has thrown himself into the modernizing its doctrine and command, either through experimental armor units or the radical ideas of allowing artilleries greater responsibilities. His goal is creating the most lethal fighting force Chiroptera has ever seen, and has earned him the begrudging respect of his peers. Lucent has heart in Chiroptera, and that is a hard thing to have. His love for the Nightmare is so grand that he knows he must correct her most devout followers from blind zealotry that would harm the Empress's grand vision. There needs to be reform in the nation. There needs to be change. He has often found a kindred spirit in Lady Auburn Leaf of Clan Reed, leading to many late-night debates and harsh discussions in dimly lit parlors. While they may not agree on each issue, they certainly understand that the future is in their hooves. Dead air. General Stone Palisade. If 6 years ago you would have asked any soldier of the Starborn Legion who their next commander would be, none would have said Stone Palisade. Sure, he held a relatively high post in the Starborn Legion, attending to its work in the nation's eastern territories, but that was all. He was one more legionary in a land with over 100,000 of those. Then came the Yetis. The first sign of the Storm King's approach came from an agent of the Nightmare Hooves in Merija. A horde was coming, massive airships that threw through the sky, and magic of thunder and frost. It was then that Palisade decided he needed to act. Moving without orders to secure resources, he began constructing defensive redoubts along Chiroptera's border, securing it against Yeti attack. In this, he set up anti-air defenses, defensive checkpoints, citadels, mines, as well as defenses along the southern coast to defend against an invasion over the water. So when the time came and the armies of the mighty Storm King arrived upon the border of Chiroptera, Stone Palisade defied defenses, and his legions stood ready to turn them back. But no attack came, as when the Storm King looked upon this nightmare line, as Palisade had called it, he deemed the land too much trouble to attack, and simply moved further north. After his Palisade was called to New Eclipse for an unknown reason, he himself was told close confidence that he feared he would be reprimanded for acting without orders, or even face worse punishment, but he would be proven wrong. For when he arrived in the city, he was asked to meet with the commander of his legion, and what he was told is unknown to this day. We know, though, that when he left that room, he was designated as the Starborn Legion's next commander, and from there, he has only risen. and General Lunar Hale. The life of Lunar Hale started quite simply. Born to a poor terrestrial family in the Moonspeak Hollow, they had no political power, no prestigious military position, and not much property to their name. Though what they did have was their daughter. They confided in her their deep faith in Nightmare and admiration for the children of the Moon Legion, who her family saw as the most devout protectors of their nations. Lunar was always a sheepish child, upstanding and genuine, but often reserved. It seemed that Lunar Hale would continue this line as a laborer for the entirety of her life, until one fateful night. When she was 13, her family found that she was not in the house one night. They found her asleep in the nearby forest grove, and when they brought her home, she began to speak of the things she had seen. She told her parents that she had seen a vision of the Nightmare Moon's return. She didn't know when it would happen, but the finish was so glorious that she knew what her cause in life must be to help bring this event about, and so her journey into faith deepened. As soon as she could, she began to study to become a moon speaker, and then joined the Children of the Moon as a military chaplain. By this time, her parents had noticed a change in her. She became more charismatic. She spoke with a confidence she had never had before, and could easily work crowds into a frenzy, especially when she was speaking on religious matters. With this, she quickly became a sought-after preacher within her legion, letting her climb the ranks. In the year 1000, the previous chief moon speaker of the nation died of natural causes, with Lunar Hale assuming the post. 4 years later, the Children of the Moon's commander also died, and since Lunar Hale already held a high position in her legion, it wasn't difficult to get the other officers and moon speakers of the legion to elect her their leader. And now with the Legion in one hoof and the nation's faith in the other, Lunar Hale sets forth to wage war to bring about Nightmare's eternal glory! Man, this Chiropterra the Legionnaire thing is pretty interesting. They all are better at night and get more experience, but they can't have quite as many people in their army. Honestly, I'll take that trade-off. That is nice. Doop. 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 Ooh. Yeah, I like you a lot. You're even a submarine fanatic. You're a sea wolf and a submarine fanatic. And I, in real, just how I play this game, I am a submarine fanatic. I overuse submarines to extremes. So that's perfect for me. Yes. Alright, I guess I'll move you there, and you can be there, and I honestly don't need you, but I'll keep you as a division that I can have if I want you at some point. Alright, 2 minutes to midnight. For countless generations, we have prepared to go to war for the glory of the Nightmare, and now the hour of destiny is nearly upon us. It's time to reorganize our forces, so that when our goddess returns, we will be ready. Yes, we must. Alright, you guys get over there so that I can prepare for prepare to do a labor acquisition operation. What is this, Russia? The 1,000-year conspiracy. Millennia. We waited and prepared for a millennia when our goddess returned. Our exile of generations on Zebrica mattered little, for she would have her righteous army when she returned, as the prophecy promised. On a night of nights, 1,000 years after the great catastrophe, the elements of harmony tore her asunder. The accursed charms ripped divinity from her holy hooves, and devolved her to a lesser form. She had returned, though, and Nightmare Moon had returned. Her mortal form may be weakened in Prince Luna, but it was a sign. Despite her weakened state, Chiropterra rejoiced for months at her rebirth. There was hope. For 7 years, we have intensified our effort and expanded our operation on Equus. We have strained already sword relations between Thestrials and ponies, sabotaged efforts to modernize the equestrian military even after the changeling heretics captured Canterlot, and have embedded our assets across the equestrian territories. Our ancestors arrived on Zebrica with spears and bows on rickety trees, bursting from the scene with their families. Our exile here, our removal from our homeland, will be avenged. We will return to Equestria on massive ships, armed with tanks and machine guns, each blessed by the moon herself. And if we fail, we shall wait a millennia more. We are patient, we are watching, and we will return! Soon, the Empress shall return. But I think that will be a good time to end part 1 of the Chiroptera playthrough. If you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.